is for the Americans. If you're not an American, feel free to watch, but please try and get it to the Americans. My name is Bianca van Wyk, born in South Africa, live in South Africa. Today you will be welcoming the so-called white Afrikaans refugees. They are there based on an offer made to them, which I must say was informed by disinformation about South Africa. Now, I've seen a lot of takes on who Americans think they are receiving. Okay, you are not getting successful, professional, white, middle class South Africans that are fleeing South Africa. The people you are getting are the people that believe that there is discrimination against them based on their race. Keep in mind, we live in the most unequal country in the world. We have, for instance, 70% of agricultural land and agricultural holdings are owned by white South Africans. 62 to 68% of top leadership positions in corporate are filled by white males. There is a huge salary disparity between white South Africans and the rest of the population. And there are a number of other indicators which shows you that this story of discrimination based on race is false. Another thing that I wanted to say is that you will get certain so-called refugees that have experienced crime. However, in South Africa, no one is exempt. These people that you are welcoming assume because they're white, they should not experience crime. The people most affected by crime in South Africa happen to be black people that live in poverty. So as you open your doors and welcome people, and you're going to get a lot of information and disinformation from these people, please do keep that in mind. Oh, I also would like to say all the best and good luck to the Americans.
I'm just really upset about something, and I want to delve into it real quick. Again, I know this isn't sports. I know some of you come here for sports. I respect that. But earlier today, a group of 50 white South Africans landed at Dulles International Airport as refugees. And they were welcomed into the United States under a humanitarian designation meant for those men and women fleeing war or persecution. And Trump has suspended this for all other groups everywhere in the world. And almost all of those other groups, or a huge majority, are people of color. And Donald Trump has allowed these 50 white South Africans into the United States because he says that there's a genocide in South Africa. And that is just actually not true. Trump said farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black, it makes no difference to me. And at the same time, you're watching people all over this country being rounded up. People almost exclusively who are of color being rounded up by ICE, taken into facilities, exported. But white people are being brought in from South Africa under the false pretense of they're facing this life or death discrimination. It is so fucked up. Like, it is so fucked up. If you don't think these people are racist, please understand this. No brown people are allowed in this country. We are not taking any refugees who happen to be brown. But these 50 white people from South Africa can come in. These 50 white people with their families and their history of apartheid can come in. We need to help the white people of South Africa, and we are allowing them into America. Think how fucking deranged that is. I'm being serious. Even if you're a Republican, even if you're pro low taxes, think how fucking deranged that is, that there are people in the Trump administration believe that the optics and the politics of this, what we need to do are save the white South Africans. And if you're like, this is great, this is so awesome, blah, blah, blah. Like, something is wrong with you. Like, something is actually wrong with you. This is the most racist, sinister shit I've seen done in the open by a politician in years. There's been racist, sinister shit done by both parties through the years. This is just, look, we're racist. Look, we're going to let the white people in, but no brown people in. But the white people, come on in. We want to save you. That's what this is. And if you're not paying attention, just Google it. Google South Africa and Trump. Google South Africa and white and America right now. I'm not exaggerating what's going on. It is fucked up and absolutely crazy and disgusting and disturbing, but on brand with this monster and this minions.
Welcome to the United States of America. It is such an honor for us to receive you here today. This is the land of the free. It makes me so happy to see you with our flag in your hands, and that flag symbolizes liberty for so many of us. Many of us, our families, have had a journey not that different from the journey that you are embarking on today. Any adjustment in life, any change takes a while to get used to. But I want you all to know that you are really welcome here, and that we respect what you have had to deal with these last few years. We respect the long tradition of your people and what you have accomplished over the years. And I am sure that you will be successful. It's, as you know, a lot of you, I think, are farmers, right? When you have quality seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom, they will bloom. And we are excited to welcome you here to our country, where we think you will bloom, and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children, and then we will bloom and we will benefit alongside you.
Y'all, I done found one of them South African refugees on TikTok, and I came across them through T. So let's sit in and let's talk about it. Okay, so I was scrolling through TikTok, and I come across this video of a girl saying how she recognized somebody from the group of refugees that came to America on Monday. So she said she was scrolling through TikTok and she had been hearing about the BS about the South African refugees coming to the U.S. and stuff like that. So she said she was just scrolling and she came across the arrival video of them arriving. And she recognized her ex-stepfather. And she was like, what the hell is going on? Like, they literally kicked me out of the house not too long ago. How the hell are you in America as a refugee? She was like, this man is not even a farmer. He is not a South African, a white South African. He doesn't speak the language. He only speaks English. And from what I learned, white South Africans pride themselves on not speaking English. She said he only speaks English. And she don't know what the hell he doing there and how he got refugee status, right? So the stepdad decided to respond. He's talking about, this is me responding from my new home in America, right? Nice English, great English. And he goes on to say that she was kicked out of the house because basically she wasn't doing what she's supposed to do and all this other stuff. Basically kind of trying to say like she was a bum. And he was trying to say he is South African. His family decided not to speak that language and only speak English. And that he is a farmer. He has some ag degree. I guess at a point in time he leased some farmland. And then he says she know why he qualifies because when she was a child, he got poked up 15 times in the chest, right? And when he said that, I was like, if that happened when she was a child, what the hell that have to do with today? Because the law that they're tripping over, like, was just passed recently. This girl is, like, in her early 20s, right? So keep that in mind. So that made my ears perked up because I'm like, okay. So he's saying that's what qualified him to come to the U.S. because he was a farmer and he was attacked. Now, she wasn't going to make a response video, but she like, yo, it's two sides to all story. He had some truth in there, but he left out a whole bunch of stuff. So she said, basically she cleared up why she was kicked out, and why she dropped out of school and stuff like that. Then she went on to say that, her mom was on rugs, right? And he got poked up because of a personal issue with them rugs between, her mom and whoever. And that the person who did it, they assumed that he was a white person. Okay, so this man is trying to use a personal attack, or not trying to. He used a personal poking attack to get to the U.S. And she said they wasn't even living on a farm. They were living in a city called Sun City. And that poking had nothing to do with him owning a farm or being a farmer or anything. It was about rugs. So just like I said, we just getting a whole bunch of freaking criminals and ain't nobody foreigners.
Certain people have the complexion for protection. This is what I mean. These are the white South African refugees that are coming to the United States after Elon Musk lied and spread misinformation on Twitter, saying that these white South Africans were experiencing G-side by the political party in charge. Here's the timeline of events. On July 31st, 2023, Elon Musk tweets they are openly pushing for G-side of white people in South Africa. Then he tags the president of South Africa and says, "Why do you say nothing?" So as you can see, Elon Musk has been fueling this fire and spreading this misinformation for fucking years now. Fast forward, Elon Musk spends $300 million getting Donald Trump elected. Donald Trump wins. And the first day in office, January 20th, 2025, when he gets inaugurated, Trump signs an executive order ending the refugee admissions program. An executive order that basically says the United States lacks the ability to absorb large number of migrants, and in particular, refugees, because of the availability of resources for Americans, essentially declaring that the refugees coming to the United States were competing for resources against Americans. Elon Musk then uses the power of being in Trump's ear all the fucking time and up his ass and turns Trump against South Africa. Even though the claims of white G-side are ruled not real by a South African court, literally 4 days later signs an executive order called Addressing Egregious Actions in the Republic of South Africa, where he cuts off all funding to South Africa. Then he fast-tracks white South African citizenship while rejecting all other refugees. Here's where the story gets better. Here's where I say that they had the complexion for protection, because these white South Africans are descendants of mainly Dutch and French colonial settlers who first came to South Africa more than 300 years ago. They were at the heart of the apartheid government that systematically oppressed non-whites. Yeah, they're the ones who get to come here on an air-conditioned plane, walking through the airport, welcome to the United States, given flags for a fucking photo op. Meanwhile, the Afghan refugees who helped the U.S. military during the U.S. military operations in Afghanistan are in dangerous limbo after the Trump administration ordered a pause on the refugee resettlement program. Meanwhile, this is how Black Haitian immigrants are welcomed to the United States. Meanwhile, other refugee populations that are non-white, this is how they come to the United States. I'm not saying that motherfuckers gotta look like their story or look like they struggled, but there's a clear differentiation between people who have valid concerns, valid refugee claims, and seeking asylum versus these motherfuckers that are coming in shorts and look like they're well-fed and look like they have good clothes on their fucking backs. And if you really want to deconstruct all the fucking hypocrisy all the fucking way, why is it that the reason that the U.S. refugee resettlement program was scrapped was because the refugees were competing for resources against Americans, yet the literal website that's helping them resettle into the United States is openly saying that these white South Africans are going to receive financial assistance, a one-time federal grant, $1,275 per person, cash assistance, supplemental nutrition assistance program, yeah, food assistance, food stamps, housing assistance, medical assistance, work and employment support. And to top it all off, they won't have to even prove that they were being persecuted. The complexion for motherfucking protection.
South Africa's own government is even coming out today and telling Trump, if you want to take on these refugees, that's on you. But just so you know, none of them have been properly vetted. A lot of them have been involved in protests that are pro-apartheid. And on top of that, these guys are actually claiming that they're being persecuted for being white. I don't know if you know a whole lot about South Africa, where Elon Musk is from, but the apartheid just ended not very long ago. If you don't know what that is, it was mass segregation. South Africa's government also came out and added that it's really hard to be a refugee of persecution when you're amongst the most highest earners and highly educated in the entire region. But in my personal opinion, this kind of gives me remnants of Operation Paperclip, what the US government did after World War II. They got a little over 1,500 German scientists and high-ranking officials from the military, Hitler's military, to come over to the United States so they could learn from them. Now, I'm no mathematician, but 2 + 2 = 4. What Trump's been doing here in the United States as far as deporting individuals, they've all been brown people. And now he's more than willing to bring thousands of white people claiming they've been persecuted by brown people without even fully vetting them. The answer to this simple mathematical equation is Trump wants more white people in the United States. If it ain't white, it ain't right. And that's literally Trump's mindset. You can't prove me otherwise.
Elon Musk and Donald Trump are lying about why they're bringing the white South Africans to America. There's 2 reasons why, and I believe I figured it out. Let's start with the history of the situation. The first reason. So in 1913, South Africa was ran by white supremacists called the Union of South Africa, which consisted of the British Empire. Black Africans were excluded from political participation and representation. This was the same year Louis Botha and Jan Smuts came with the Natives Land Act of 1913, which restricted land ownership to black Africans and reserved it for the white settlers. The exact same thing they was doing to black people in America, except they stripped us of our whole identity. Black Africans were also segregated the same way. Education, healthcare, finances, landowners stripped of their land. Now let's jump to 2025 and you have this administration bringing in white South Africans. They claim that it's because of genocide on white South Africans, but I know for a fact that's a lie. In 2018, South Africa elected a president and then re-elected him in 2024 named Cyril Ramaphosa. He's implemented an equality for all approach. He said the persecution of white South Africans is a lie. They were not victims of any violent attacks. There's no genocide going on. The truth is, he passed a law called the Expropriation Act, which allows the government to take away land from its owner without compensation for public purposes or public interest. This is why Elon Musk and Donald Trump are screaming genocide, because he's taking back the stolen land and giving it back to the rightful owners, or using it for things like infrastructure and access to resources. There's only 7% of white South Africans, but yet they own 70% of the land. So he's reversing the entire Natives Land Act of 1913. That's what this is all about. Now with Elon, he's a white South African born under the Natives Land Act. That's why he's so involved. David Sachs is a white South African. Peter Thiel is a white South African. All are billionaires and the biggest supporters of Trump's administration. This is one reason why the lie was started to get them over here. Now the second reason, the white population in America is declining. They're having more deaths than births. It's a fact. You can look it up. They're becoming a minority in this country. Whether you want to hear it or not, these are facts. So in order to boost that population, they had to do this. First, stop abortions, which is the reason for the reversal of Roe versus Wade. White women's abortion rate is around 33 to 34%, which is second behind black women. They don't really care about stopping abortion for black women as long as they can bring that percentage down for white women. Then you open the borders. And who were they bringing in at first? The Ukrainian people, remember? All white. They let 1.1 million of them over here. So then you reclassify them as white, increase the white population, but make it seem like it's the Hispanic and Caribbean immigrants that's the problem. Put the spotlight on them and have a few of them deported so everybody forgets about the Ukrainian immigrants that came over. We were all focused on everybody else. Next, they attacked DEI. Why? Because over 70% of the beneficiary of DEI was white women. Same with affirmative action. More white women are leaving the home and going to work, which means less babies being born. That's what that was for. DEI didn't have shit to do with black people. The goal is to get more white women back into the home and start having more babies. So what did Trump do next? Offer $5,000 for newborn babies, right? Y'all pay attention. And now they create a scenario to give to the American people as a reason they're bringing in more white South Africans. This ain't about no genocide. This is about control and the fear of losing it. If I'm the Hispanic community and you done deported some of my family and friends, I'm gonna be pissed. Because now it's okay for them to come over here. Black people, we need to wake up. And it's time to unite. All that being each other ops and beefing and shit, it's time out for that. If we don't come together now before it's too late, we will be replaced. And if I'm the white community, ask yourself this. If they bringing them over here, who do you think they gonna take the place of? The shit they were giving y'all, the what, people call white privilege. Who do you think that's about to go to now? All of us as Americans should have a serious problem with this because what they're really doing is genocide to Americans. That's why they came with the Carmelo Anthony case and the Shiloh Hendricks situation. All of those were distractions to keep us divided and going at each other, not paying attention to what's really happening to each other. We have to unite as Americans and really pay attention before it's too late.
Let me get this straight. Trump banned Muslims, caged black and brown kids, and called Haiti a shithole, but somehow he's rolling out the carpet for white South Africans, who, mind you, claim they're being oppressed by the very people that they oppressed for generations. This is not refugee policy. It's plantation nostalgia, dressed up as immigration reform. This entire push to rescue South African farmers is built on a narrative, not facts. Yeah, there's some violence in South Africa. Yeah, some white farmers have been attacked. But the majority of the victims, they're not white. And the attacks aren't racially targeted. They're part of a broader crime crisis. South Africa has deep issues, yes. But this ain't some ethnic cleansing of white people. This lie got amplified by conservative media, white nationalist forums, and people who think land redistribution is oppression. When really, it's just justice knocking on the door. So let's be honest about what this really is. It's America offering comfort to people who feel uncomfortable with equality. That's it. Because these so-called refugees are being fast-tracked for protection. Black asylum seekers from war-torn nations are being detained, deported, and ignored. They're not being offered farms and safety. They're being offered ice and silence. This has never been about safety. It's about whiteness being treated like it's in danger anytime it's not in power. But here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to let people run from the consequences of apartheid, land here, and act like they're victims of a woke world gone mad. No. You don't get to gentrify racial trauma across borders. You don't get to weaponize your discomfort with progress and call it persecution. And if you're feeling displaced by land reform, good, because the land wasn't yours to begin with. So if you think Trump's weak attempt to play savior gives you the green light to come over here and start disrespecting people, think again, because the rest of us, we don't play like that. Go find you something safe to do, because bringing apartheid to a new zip code is the fastest way to find out this ain't the America you thought you were walking into. Stay safe.
People who are being enticed to go to the United States do not fit the definition of a refugee. A refugee is someone who has to leave their country out of fear of political persecution, religious persecution, or economic persecution. And
that's what the United States says they're undergoing in South Africa. That's why they've opened the door for them.
Yes, and they don't fit that bill. They don't fit that description. And I had a conversation with President Trump on the phone, and he said, what's happening down there? And I said, President, what you've been told by those people who are opposed to transformation back home in South Africa is not true. And I added to him, I said, we were well taught by Nelson Mandela and other iconic leaders like Oliver Tambo on how to continue to build a united nation out of the diverse groupings that we have in South Africa. We're the only country on the continent where the colonizers came to stay, and we have never driven them out of our country. So they are staying, and they're making great progress. It's a fringe grouping that does not have a lot of support, that is anti-transformation and anti-change, that would actually prefer to see South Africa going back to apartheid type of policies. And I said to him, I would never do that. I learned at the feet of Nelson Mandela, and we intend to proceed with the implementation of our constitutional architecture. And I thought in my conversation with him early in the morning at 4 o'clock South African time, he understood that. And I said, I'd like to come and meet him so that we can discuss this matter further. So those people who have fled are not being persecuted. They are not being hounded. They are not being treated badly. And they are leaving ostensibly because they don't want to embrace the changes that are taking place in our country in accordance with our Constitution. So we think that the American government has got the wrong end of the stick here, but we'll continue talking to them.
So a face-to-face meeting is coming up. Is Elon Musk invited when you have that face-to-face meeting?
Well, I don't know. They will determine whether Elon Musk is part of it or not. I will go with my own South African delegation.
And y'all are so worried about them bringing over these South African refugees while they're kicking out all the brown immigrants. Let me tell you something. Do you remember history books? Do you? Do you remember when they initially colonized this country? You remember who did they bring over? You remember when they brought over the Irish? You remember? History repeats itself. You guys, they're kicking out all the brown people because they're going to bring in some new workforce labor. Listen, those South African farmers, they have no clue what America's about to do to them. Listen! Stop tripping. What refugees come with luggage? They had luggage upon luggage upon luggage. What, baby, they're about to be in servitude. They are. So, you know, have great days, America.
Y'all are so stupid, and you never cease to amaze me with the levels of a stupidity that you stoop to. So we got 8,000 South Africans coming over here and being granted immediate, no process, being granted immediate citizenship for the bullshit that they was causing over in South Africa and got their land taken away. Do you know that 8% of the South Africans, which are white, own 87% of the land? How the fuck do you go into somebody else's land and own a majority of... This is why we have problems with you white fuckers. This is why we have problems with you. German, Danish, whatever the fuck you are. European, American, y'all just think that y'all have a right to everything. And I appreciate that in you, you know, because some of us could learn a lesson from knowing what we deserve and then actually going and getting it. But the problem is y'all take it. You think you deserve something and then you take it. That's the problem. Now you coming over here to infect the United States with the virus that is you. You're a virus. You're a virus. And you destroy everything that you touch. How you white people of America feel about these white Afrikaners coming, because you know he holds them in a much, much, much more higher plane than he holds you. Particularly since they're Elon's kin, whether they're friends or they don't know each other, they're Elon. So how do y'all feel about that? At the drop of a dime as an American, he can deport you. White, black, it doesn't matter. I know y'all think it's only going to happen to certain people, but you're in the firing squad line. You're in the line, and he's bringing over people to replace you. Isn't that what those white boys were marching around in whatever ville that was in the South? Jews will not replace us. No, Jews is not going to replace you. The Afrikaners are going to replace you. And how do you feel about that? Black people still the problem? You still want a civil... You still want a civil war? So we're going to be fighting a civil war against each other, and the Afrikaners are going to be just looking, sitting and waiting to see which side loses so they could take all their land. Y'all are losers. Y'all are such losers. There's no definition for you in the dictionary under loser. They just have your picture and a stupid smirk on your face.
I need y'all to realize what Trump just did. He brought 8,000 white people out here from South Africa. Not because they need refuge, not because they need asylum. It's because he knows these 8,000 white South African mothers are racist. He knows they finna come over here and they're gonna be blatantly racist, thinking that they still in South Africa. But these 8,000 racist mothers gonna find out the hard way. They're gonna come around and find out. You can't talk that shit over here on our soil.
This is completely false. Trump didn't bring in 8,000 white people from South Africa. He granted refugee status to 59 white South Africans who were fleeing persecution. 59 is nowhere near 8,000. Second, you've never met these people, yet you're calling them racist just based off the color of their skin, which is actually racist. As far as you claiming that these are people who couldn't possibly need refuge, I'd like you to watch this video of the leader of one of the largest political parties in South Africa.
Never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
Now watch this video of him at a rally, singing and chanting with tens of thousands of people about taking the lives of white farmers.
Shoot to kill. Come on, sir. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa.
Now that we've cleared up the misunderstandings, how about we get back to judging people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin? God bless.
Do you guys want to tell the refugees the kind of jobs they will be doing in America or not? Because as much as they're going to provide them jobs, how much are those jobs going to be paying? Do they understand what it takes to start over? You all had it easy in South Africa.
All right, family, so let me get this straight. I asked these YT South Afrikaners to show us proof of the said genocide that's supposed to be taking place in South Africa. And this gaslit comment really takes the cake. So apparently the proof is my attitude towards white folks. That's crazy. See, family, YT folks can invade a continent, erase a civilization, rewrite textbooks, and then tell you your attitude is the problem. I can't take it no more.
Grew up in apartheid South Africa as a English-speaking white boy. I only became politically conscious when I was already 18 years of age, because prior to that, I had been subjected to and sucked in this incredible propaganda of victimization of the white people, where every piece of news, every message we were getting, every joke, the butt of every joke was the stupidity of the black man, the inability of the black man to look after himself, never mind the country, to be ignorant, uneducated, break everything he touched. The messaging was that all violence was black violence, that all crime was black crime, that you had to fear black people. And a huge amount of that fear was that if we let them into the political process, into the governance of the country, that they would do to us exactly what we had done to them for decades, which would be to turn around and oppress us, to murder us, to take our stuff, to move into our houses. It was a very popular story that the ANC, prior to the 94 election, when it was still an illegal organization and Nelson Mandela was still in jail, and the armed wing was exiled to Zambia and Mozambique, Umkhonto weZizwe, was that they promised all of our domestic servants that those servants would be given the house they worked in when the ANC ruled. And these stories were told amongst the whites to bolster our resolve never to let these black people run our country. And it was only when I became conscious of that from 18 onwards that I realized not only was this a terrible lie that was actually oppressing us as well as the people that we as a white nation, white minority, were oppressing, but that actually what happened subsequently from 1994 onwards was far more of a reflection of the nature of black South Africans than any fears we as white South Africans had been fed and believed, right? And I see direct parallels with what's happening in Palestine and Israel. We've been fed this bullshit of Israel as victim, of the Zionist government as defending, this idea that the entire Arab world wanted to wipe them off the map, when in fact, prior to the Nakba, prior to Palestine being given to Israel by the colonial powers, primarily Britain, many Jews lived very happily and harmoniously alongside Muslims and Christians within that region. They weren't oppressed there. They became the oppressor through the Zionist ambition of a few Israelis. White government for many, many years in South Africa needed the violence of Umkhonto weZizwe. They needed the odd bomb to go off. They needed terror attacks because it justified the further repression. And I've told stories about when I was in the South African Defence Force in 1987-88, 88-89. The things that were done by the intelligence service to undermine the ANC and other liberation struggles and to pit black against black, to distract black people from action against the oppressive minority and the history of oppression. And it's time to step aside from what we've been told and look at the truth, look at the reality, look at the history, educate ourselves, and make a moral judgment based on our real values as a human.
Africans are now given refugee status in the US, and as somebody who comes from a country that has been hosting white South Africans for the past decade now as they're seeking refuge, I just want to tell you, and you can ask Australians and Kiwis about this too, because white South Africans have been moving in massive numbers to Australia and New Zealand, so they know what I'm talking about. When white South Africans move to white majority countries, which the US is, they start thinking that because it's a white majority country, that it's a safe space to say inflammatory things about black South Africans. So just an FYI, get ready for that.
Probably will not be deporting these white South African farmers, will you?
No, Jesse, what President Trump is doing is adding integrity back into our immigration programs and our refugee programs, making sure that individuals that get the chance to come to America, be a part of opportunity and freedom and liberty, are actually people who are being persecuted by their government at home.
Unlike the Haitians, who literally were propping up dying cities, they brought them into dying cities and they did jobs no one else was there to do. So unlike them, boy, it just so happens that the first batch of people they decide are coming in with an integrity happen to be whiteys. Oh, and from the same country of Elon Musk. Got it. Awesome.
Home that are having acts of violence perpetuated by them. These South African families had their land taken from them. The South African government was committing and perpetuating and facilitating acts of violence against them and their families. And they have found a place in the United States of America where they can sleep peacefully at night. This is exactly what President Trump said he would do during the campaign and committed to the American people, is that he would put integrity back into this country. He would follow the rule of law and make sure that he followed the refugee program just like Congress dictated it should operate.
So I've been looking at, like, is this a genocide or not? If there's a genocide in South Africa happening, there's so many times where there's a genocide and they don't even want to call it that, like Rwanda in the 90s and other situations, possibly in Gaza. They don't want to call that a genocide. Whether it is or not is debatable, but surely it's a war-torn area that needs help. But in this case, I don't know. I don't get my South African news too often, so I just wonder, is there a genocide happening in South Africa I did not know about? And why isn't the United Nations doing anything about it?
These are the first group of white South Africans who've been fast-tracked into refugee status. The Trump administration made a big thing about cracking down on immigration and suspending the refugee resettlement program. So questions are being asked on why has such an exception been made for this group of people?
White farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being confiscated in South Africa.
Billionaire Elon Musk grew up in apartheid South Africa. He's one of Donald Trump's closest advisors, and he claims that there is a genocide of white people happening. South Africa's foreign minister says that there has been no land confiscation, and Donald Trump's claims that murders are happening in large numbers is not backed by any police data. These are the...
There it is, folks.
Being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black,
that's racist.
Makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspapers and the media.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Television media doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people.
Shut the fuck up. Shut all the way the fuck up until you reach the top of Shut Fuck Mountain, where there are no more fuck-ups to shut.
To escape from that violence and come here.
Call out Donald Trump for being a huge hypocrite. Imagine that, Donald Trump, a hypocrite. Donald Trump, I thought we weren't accepting any refugees from any part of the world. Donald Trump, how is it possible that you gave an order for the State Department to make arrangements to send a plane to South Africa to pick up South African refugees? And Donald, they all look pretty pasty. They all look, you know, definitely that pasty color. I got to be careful when we talk about colors. And I mean, I know y'all may not remember, but Crayola used to have that 64 box of every color in the world. And there's only one color in that Crayola box of 64 that Donald Trump seems to like. And any other color in that box of crayons, Donald Trump doesn't seem to like. My Latinos, I want to understand this. Now, he's accepting refugees from South Africa. And who else is from South Africa? Elon Musk? Interesting. But any other refugees from Central America, South America, Latin America, any other Caribbean country, Ukraine, you name it, especially those from south of the border, we're trying to deport them and send them out, reject their TPS, cancel their TPS as fast as we can, even when they're law-abiding people. But South Africans, especially those really pasty ones, that one color in the crayon box of 64, there's one color Donald Trump doesn't seem to have a problem with using that color in that crayon box. You know which one it is. What do you think? What is Donald Trump's favorite Crayola color? We all know what it is. Look at the South Africans. You'll know the answer. So my Latinos, y'all going to keep up this voting in 2026 and 2028? Yep. You go FAFO too. Yep. What do y'all think? Love to hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, my burned out light bulbs, and all my Latinos, all of y'all that voted for Trump. You see how he does you and your people. You weren't in that box of Crayola crayons that he picked out. He just picked out one color that he liked for his favorite color to color with. Kind of the color of paper, most paper. And you didn't fit that, I guess. Love to hear from everybody.
Y'all, don't worry about these white South Africans coming here. They about to be the new help. You heard me. They are about to be the new help. They got rid of all the people tending the land. All the immigrants that were tending the land are gone. So what they about to do, replace them with the white South African workers. Y'all gonna be working to feed black folks. As y'all should. Get y'all asses over here and do y'all goddamn job. Y'all think y'all getting away from us. Y'all not. Y'all just gonna be working for us. Come on in the room. See, Trump knew he couldn't get our asses out there. There's no way in hell you're going to get black folks out there to work no kind of land. But he could say, hey, these South Africans are being suppressed. Their land is being taken away from them. They need to come over here and seek retribution and get y'all asses in the field where the fuck y'all belong. Make sure y'all picking every fucking vegetable and don't miss out on anything. Y'all not getting away from black folks. Y'all going to be around us a lot more. And unlike the ones in South Africa, we don't give a fuck. You're not going to be able to call us colored. You're going to get your dome rocked. So be careful, tread lightly. And remember, we don't see you as African. We see you as colonizers of an apartheid. Welcome to America.
Why can't a black person come here? It's not the right question. It's more a question like a marriage between two people. It's an exclusive affair. Doesn't mean you're against anyone else.
You are preserving your culture on a land that belongs to South Africans.
The land here we bought, we paid for it.
From who?
Well, at that stage we bought it from the previous owner, which was the government.
I don't think an African can leave Africa, go to Europe and say that we just bought this land and no one is allowed to come in.
We feel part of this continent, and maybe people don't agree, but I don't have another home. Obviously I know that I have European roots.
Yeah.
For 400 years my people have been here.
Yeah.
I love Africa. I don't want to live anyplace else. When I've been overseas, this is the only place that I feel at home. These men are part of our history. No nation's history is only good, but also no nation's history is only bad.
Would you agree with me if I say that this man performed a lot of atrocities in the past.
Obviously, these are controversial figures, and I think that's why Orania is also a solution to a lot of the international conversation about monuments, because this is on private land, private funds, and it's our history.
I know it's your history, but at the end of the day, a lot of people were harmed in the process. You don't think if you are embracing this, you're definitely embracing apartheid?
Is it okay to celebrate Shaka Zulu leader? Do you know who that is?
I know who Shaka Zulu is.
He killed a lot of people. Is it fine to celebrate him?
That's a question for South Africans.
That is a question. This is a question for Iranians.
He was more like the architect for apartheid. I mean, we can never forget our history, but I mean, I feel like this being here, it's more like a sword in the eyes of the people of South Africa.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Do you believe that whatever you guys are practicing here is racism?
I do not believe that we are practicing racism. To tell you the truth, if the question is, are there racists in Orania, I can assure you there are. There are racists in every town in South Africa and every country in the world you'll find racists. That is a fact. The Orania model is a model of cultural preservation, and that is not racist.
So if you check the coat of arms of South Africa, it said there is unity in diversity. What you are practicing in here is not unity in diversity.
I beg to differ. How can there be any diversity in South Africa if cultures are not allowed to be themselves? And what you're not going to get in Orania is people falling on their knees, continuously saying sorry for their history. A lot of people apologized on our behalf for everything.
I'm in the process of sponsoring a family that is fleeing South Africa due to the white genocide. I am not going to let a white group of people suffer and not help them because I've been bullied into not giving a shit. That ain't me. Wrong dude. Don't care. These people want to be Americans. They don't want to be South Africans anymore because that country was given over the minute that fucking cocksucking communist Mandela was let out of prison. They're going to live in my house, and I'm going to fucking feed them and take care of them.
Suffice to say that I got involved in the abuse of the minority white race in South Africa a couple of years ago, got heavily involved, ultimately ended up sponsoring a family of 4 and helped facilitate them from Africa. And obviously it turned out bad. They did play me, and they admit, in fact, that was one of the things they said was they're bragging about how they played me like a sport game. I spent over $30,000 in that 11 months in money and fed and clothed them. So I might be stupid enough to have fallen for that because I thought with my heart instead of my head. You know what? They cost me a lot of money when they were here, suck and parasite and use people, and then when they're done, they just fucking, go on to the next fucking victim. When they talk to me, it's like, hey, we're a good family, we own a business, and we're hardworking people, and, when we get to America, the way we'll pay the rent will be we'll work for you guys, all right? If anything, we had to work 10 times as hard just to fucking take care of these people. I mean, in 11 months, I got my grass cut 3 times. One time ended up being in a huge argument. Everything fucking free. Lay around, watch TV, and watch fucking movies for 11 months. And
Hey, lovely people, and particularly a quick word to my American friends who might be tempted to believe what Donald Trump is saying about South Africa, my home country, where I happen to be right now. Him and Elon Musk are racist twats who have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because what they're doing is taking the word of a fringe racist group called Afriforum and other disaffected whites, disgruntled by the end of apartheid, feeling hard done by, and much like the Israelis, victimizing themselves when they are not victims at all. Bitching about how, land redistribution is racist against whites. These are such ignorant provocateurs, and it's going to backfire on them. South Africans' majority, the black majority, and it's a multiracial, multi-tribal society now, only own a tiny proportion of the land versus the size of their population. And while white South Africans make up 7% of the population, more or less, they own about 70% of the decent land. And so the redistribution of land is to address past inequities, and the vast majority of South Africans agree and understand why that's happening and that it's a good thing. It's also under a very strict mechanism. Now, not everyone agrees, of course, with the mechanism, but the principle is what racists like Musk and Trump are railing against here on behalf of a bunch of assholes who equate equality with oppression, because for so many years, decades and decades of the apartheid era, they were the oppressor. And as we know, whenever the oppressor looks at something like equality, it suddenly becomes oppression of him. So fuck Elon Musk, fuck these idiots from AfriForum. You probably know nothing about them, but this is a bunch of, you know, the equivalent of your kind of Proud Boys hanging on to some past that never actually existed. And a past in which the vast majority of people in this country were oppressed, suppressed, and treated much like, fortunately not quite as badly as the Israelis treat the Palestinians. So this whole railing against South Africa, I'm going to add one more point. South Africans on the whole, all of us, white, black, Indian, colored, which is not a term, is a specific term for those of you who might get offended by that, a specific racial group. We are very, very resilient people. As a country, we have gone through a great deal, both in terms of the early part and then the transition from the apartheid era to genuine multicultural democracy. And whatever Trump throws at us, we can handle. We can handle it because we've been through far, far worse in our history. And my hope is that South Africans all turn around with one voice and tell Trump to fuck off with his sanctions and his fucking withdrawal of aid and his tariffs and all of this stuff, because we can live through it. What I'm not sure about is whether Americans can, because for the most part, all the stuff that Vivek Ramaswamy said recently about Americans being soft, not prepared to put in the hard graft, and all this stuff, I tell you, for the experience of most foreigners is true. And it's not true of every American I know. Some of them are the most hard-working, wonderful people in the world. But as a general principle, South Africans are far more resilient and able to withstand this kind of bullshit authoritarian pressure than any American population. So, to my fellow South Africans, let's stick this out. Let's stick up the middle finger to Trump and particularly to Elon Musk, because we know from his background that he left South Africa in the apartheid era and retains the racist bullshit that's motivating these people like Creel. And now that I'm in South Africa, I'm seeing their awesome, ridiculous tweets. Fuck those guys as well. They're the past. Most of us are the future, and it's a beautiful future.